I'm recording this interview for the Library of Congress. The veteran's name is John Elliot Wright. He was born on May 12, 1922. He served in World War II in the Asiatic Pacific Campaign. He achieved the rank of Boatswain 3rd class. We're recording this on October 19, 2012 at Clemson University in South Carolina. I am Daniel Mack and I'm conducting the interview of no relation. Mr. Wright, why don't you tell us about where you were born and just your life growing up in general?
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts, lived in the town of Sharon. We grew up on a small farm, and I'm fourth oldest of 13 children.
Fourth oldest of, what was, you were born in 1922, what was growing up like school like then and going around and just...
Well, during the Depression, there wasn't much going on. And we lived on the farm, and, you know, that's about all there was to it.
Grew your own food and pretty much lived off the land for yourself, for your family?
Yeah.
You, when did you graduate high school? Or graduate with any type of, just finish your schooling in general?
Well, I actually shouldn't say it, but I didn't actually graduate. I went in the CCCs in 1938. And of course the CCCs were run by the Army. So when Pearl Harbor came, I didn't want anything to do with the Army, so I went in the Navy.
Did you, where were you when you first heard the news about Pearl Harbor?
I was down at Nantasket Beach in Hull, Mass. A bunch of us boys were down there. September 7th was a Sunday, and the loudspeaker at Paragon Park across Atlantic Avenue in Hull, over the loudspeaker they had announced that Pearl Harbor had been bombed. So on the 10th of December, all us guys went into Boston to the Federal Building to sign up. They had so many, guys signing up that we were sent home, and they called us when they had room for us. The 30th of December, we got the call. We went into the Federal Building in Boston on the 31st. Got sworn in December 31st, 1941. Mm-hmm. Went to boot camp New Year's Day, 1942. They made 21 companies that day in Newport, Rhode Island. I was in company 21. We had 21 days of boot camp. And
only 21?
Only 21 days, just long enough to get your shots. And I was a supernumerary when they broke camp, being a W at the bottom of the alphabet. Mm-hmm. So I got assigned to cut the stencil we stencil our clothing with in Newport to the new recruits coming in. And in the middle of April 1942, I got my orders to go to Newport News, Virginia, to commit to the U.S.S. Indiana. And I spent my entire career then on the Indiana.
And so what day did you first set foot on Indiana, and what were you thinking when you got on the ship?
Well, let's see. We went down to...
Is that to be exact?
It must have been right around the 28th or 29th or something like that. They had us go on the ship and get in our quarters, because the ship was commissioned on April 30th. And we were all up on the ship at that time.
And what was when you first saw the Indiana? What did you think? What was
awesome, huge. I never saw a ship that big.
Was she lined up next to other ships?
Pardon?
Was she lined up next to other ships in the harbor? What did you think?
I can't remember. I know we were still at the repair dock, building docks and so. I don't think there was any ships around it. Unless there was, I didn't notice.
Well, that's what I was getting at. How she compared to other ones, but she was the only one for you.
She was the only big one there at the time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so when you first got on, what was how long did you spend there before you went through the Panama Canal?
That was the April 30th. We commissioned her, and of course they finished repairing. The Navy took her over, and then we went on trial runs from Chesapeake Bay up to Casco Bay, Maine, twice. They came back the first time, changed the propellers from 5-bladed and 4-bladed to 4-bladed and 3-bladed. We went on trial run back to Casco Bay, came back, went dry dock, took the 3-bladed screws off, put the 4-bladed back inside, 5-bladed back outside. That's what we ended up with, 5-blade and 4-blade. Because with the trial runs, I suppose told them, which were the best blades for the ship.
And
then we left in, I forget, near the end of November to go over to get to Pearl Harbor.
And where were you on the ship? I guess
I was in the 4th Division, which is a deck division, and we had the fantail of the ship. After turret 3, we called it the steel deck aft, because the wooden deck ended just after turret 3, and then the 4th Division had the stern. We control the Kingfisher. I'll say the Kingfisher planes we had on the catapults. They had 2 catapults and 2 Kingfishers on the ship. The 4th Division, handled that.
And so, what were your specific duties?
And we had the 4th Division had for the 40mm gun mounts, and I ended up on the 05 level on the starboard side above the bridge, and I started out as a first loader, then I went from first loader to spotter in the automatic control corner, and we went several battles. We shot down one. My mount actually shot down one of the
and so you were right there in front of the bridge?
Pardon?
You were right there in front of the bridge?
Just above the bridge.
So you were responsible for anything coming directly at?
Oh yes, we were shooting at them. No, we shot my gun mount. The gun mount I was spotter for. We actually shot down one kamikaze that had gotten through, and the water from the splash when he hit the water splashed up on deck.
And that's
the nearest we actually got to getting hit by anything.
You after you went through the canal, where was the first real area of operations where you started commencing operations?
Well, I forget the layout of the islands now, but we left Noumea, Caledonia, go out to sea, and I forget the first islands we helped to liberate. But we bombarded the islands all the way up to Japan to make easier for the Marines and Army to land and take over.
And you were escorting the Enterprise and the Saratoga?
Oh, the Enterprise, Saratoga, the Hornet, and I forget. I don't remember them all, but there was 3 of them that we did. Bonami, not the Bonami Richard. I don't know whether she was there or not. But there were several carriers in the fleet.
So, do you have a bunkmate?
Do I have
You have a bunkmate on the ship in the room there with you, or you have several?
bunkmates?
Yes.
Oh, we still have a big compartment, say, as big as this room. And the bunks during the day were folded up. There were four in a row, and there was stanchions, between the rows of bunks, and the bunks folded up to the stanchions, so it gives more room in the daytime.
Make sure nobody came back on a break and tried to take a nap in the middle of the day.
Yeah, well, we slept on deck a lot anyway. It was out in the Pacific.
Well, tell me about some of the things I guess wouldn't be standard about sleeping on deck and things like that.
Just at night it was so warm. We had no. Back then they didn't have air conditioning on the ships, so, and it was always that hot. So there was always guys sleeping under turret 3 on the catapults. Now forward they slept out on deck too, under the turrets. But nothing spectacular.
Did you tell me about some of the friends you made with the men on the ship?
Friends we made?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know there was the gunners mates for the 40 mm guns were part of the 4th Division. I remember the names of a couple of them, and but one of my best friends, Joe Roberts, his birthday was December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. He'll be 90 come this December. And every year when he was my best man, huh? When I got married, and because my brothers were too young yet, and every time I send him his birthday card, I always write on it, "Remember Pearl Harbor." So, but we had some experiences. We were going out to gunnery practice one time from Noumea, where this picture here was taken, and somehow we were at a flying moor, and when they were disconnecting the flying moor, somehow or another something happened, and we lost our anchors. We went out to sea without our anchors that day, that trip. And when we come back, of course, they were on the barge and brought them back to the ship. So.
Anybody get chewed out for that one, or was that just one of those? Anybody in specific get chewed out, or was it just one of those things that just happened?
Oh, it was just an accident, I suppose, that happened. So. I don't want to say how I thought of what happened, but hey, that's my thoughts.
It's your interview. You're free to.
Well, I think what happened was on the bridge somebody got the wrong orders, and we were heading toward the beach, and then I guess they hauled probably all engines astern, and that's when the anchor snapped.
And so somebody said we can either start moving or pull up the anchors.
Yeah, we started moving forward instead of reverse. So anyway, we went out without the anchors that time.
And that was the battleship was how big would you say? What would you compare it to, if you could?
Who would I compare it to in size?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Well, you couldn't compare it to anything in size because the carriers were actually longer, but the battleship was the largest ship other than the carriers. And the fleet was set up with the destroyers on the outside because they had the sonar. And if you got a sonar connected to it, a submarine or something, they were right first chasing it. Then the light cruiser inboard, and the heavy cruiser inboard that, the battleships, and then the carriers were in the center of the whole fleet. Because we had to protect them. They were the most important part of the fleet. So, but we went, well, I think it was early in '45. All the battleships left the fleet. Twice we had left the fleet about 1700 and traveled all night till we got off the coast of Japan, Yokosuka, where the Japanese Navy base was, and all the battleships bombarded. Early in the, I guess until we used up all the 16-inch shells. I'm sure they were armor piercing because, but.
Tell me about what it's like when you're bombarding. What's the noises you're hearing in the going up to your position and coming back? Just walk through, I guess, a night of bombardment.
Oh, you mean during the night?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just what was it like to you?
You just cruise in the ocean. You just hear the water. That's all.
But the bombardments themselves.
Oh, the bombardment itself. We were at general quarters, and of course, all us 40 millimeter gun people were on. Up top side and 20 millimeter guns. We were all at our battle stations, and of course, when they fired those 16-inch guns, you had to cover your ears. And I guess a couple times I probably didn't cover my ears because this is my bad ear. So, but we saw one thing in the daytime when we used to practice gunnery. The funny thing is, the guns are all even. But when they fired, the projectiles would go through the air like this, and then two at the bottom and one at the top, and it just seemed, you could see them go through the air. That was quite a thing to see.
I heard you've been telling stories all day. What's is there anything?
Well, we were rammed on the morning of February 1st, 1941. They were making a maneuver. One of the other ships made a different move, and the U.S.S. Washington hit us on the starboard side. It just wiped our whole hole, big as a destroyer, in the side of the ship. And they had to put a false bow on them. They went back to the States. We crawled back to Pearl Harbor. We stayed in Pearl Harbor all the winter that year. The rest of that winter got repaired. And then we came back, I think the next year, I think at 50, no, I think it was 54, we came back to Bremerton, Washington, and stayed up in Washington all winter that winter.
What were you thinking when, was it night when the other ship hit you by accident?
Oh yeah, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I had just gotten off mid-watch and crawled in my sack. About 5, I hadn't even got to sleep and I was on the deck. Knocked me right off. And in fact, my director operator, like I said, I was spotter for 40 millimeter gun mount, and Bill Masden was my director operator, and he was sleeping on top of a 20 millimeter gun box, ammunition box, right behind the conning tower. He lost his shoes and never did find them. He knocked them right off the yeah.
Knocked his shoes.
Knocked his shoes right off and never did find them.
That's just something.
Yeah.
How quickly did you figure out it was just an accident, or were there just?
Oh yeah, I mean, somebody made the wrong move, and that was it. That put us out of commission for a few months. So.
Tell me about around the time when the kamikaze was coming out. When would that have been?
Well, during the day, we had them during the daylight hours. They used to like to strike if they could, with the sun coming up, and if try to get on the opposite side of so the sun was shining on us while they came over, so we couldn't see them coming in the sun. But we saw them.
You have pretty good eyesight. That way, they made you the spotter.
Pardon?
You have pretty good eyesight. That's why they made you the spotter.
Oh, then I had good eyesight. Sure, I had better eyesight than I do today. Don't forget that's 73 years ago. So, yeah.
And you were responsible for shooting one directly. What you remember? What battle that would have been, or what year?
Oh no, I don't remember. We were somewhere up around probably Iwo Jima or somewhere. We're up in that, getting near the end of the. The one we shot down, we were getting on nearer up to Iwo Jima, Taiwan. We did Yafudi. Every island all the way up from the Philippines all the way up into Japan. We hit them all. Guam, guess what? Yeah, Iwo Jima. We bombarded Iwo Jima several times before the fleet went on, and. They had to, we had to try to soften it up for the Army and Marines to go ashore. But we had, I was captain's car driver in Honolulu. The year we spent in Honolulu, and I was coming back we were going to go out to sea. We leave Pearl Harbor 0600 the next morning, and took the captain into Admiral Halsey's, heading back to Pearl Harbor to get the executive officer. All of a sudden the blue lights came on. So I pulled over. The cop says, "Kind of a hurry, sailor, aren't you?" Well, I don't know. What are you going to, where are you going? Going back to the ship to get the executive officer. So, well, he wrote me up anyway. He gave me ticket. We want to see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock in the Honolulu Police Department. Okay, well, I knew we were pulling out at 0600 the next morning, so I wouldn't tell him we were going to pull out, that I wouldn't be there. And I went, loose lips, sink ships. I didn't know he might have been a spy. How do I know? So 3 months later, out to sea, the master at arms comes topside and said, "Wright, get in your dress uniform, you're going to be masked." What the hell did I do now? So anyway, I don't know, the master now said, I got orders. So I got my whites, I went up to mast. I was the last one called up, and the captain was T.J. Kelleher. He was a great guy. He looked at me, he said, the first words out of his mouth was, "You were my driver in Honolulu, weren't you, son?" And I knew what it was, and I just drained. And, "Yes, sir." He says, "What happened?" So, of course, I told him. And I told him I knew we were pulling out, and I went like this in front of the captain. I said, "Zip my lip, loose lips, sink ships." I wasn't going to tell him we were pulling out at 0600 the next day. He laughed, and he said, "Give me a little talking to. If that ever happens again, son, you tell the officer of the deck, and we'll take care of it." So that's all it was. But I really was afraid something was wrong. I had a great time there.
What was getting called up to mast? Does that just bring you up to the bridge, or?
That's the captain's mast. Is like we go in front of the judge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's never any good news when you go up there, or?
Well, I don't remember, all the guys that were at mast, but certain infractions or something, somebody puts you on a report, and you have to go to mast, and then he's the judge. He gives you your punishment. But he just gave me a talking to.
You said the captain was a great guy. Tell me about him.
Pardon?
Yeah, you talked to Captain
T.J. Kelleher?
Tell me about him.
Oh, he was a great guy. He was about 6'3", built thin like I am. And he was very good. I remember one time, because as I said, my gun mount was right on the 05 level, just above the bridge. And he used to sit over on the starboard side of the bridge, right under my director. And Bill Mazin and I were the only two in the director. The mount was set up over here, and we used to sit and watch when he sat on his stool down under us. And one day we were on watch, and I stood watching him. He kept his eye, he never moved his head. He was looking across the fleet. "OD. Yes. Send a message to Massachusetts and tell her they're back on course. She's 2 degrees off." And that time I really thought proud of him. He knew his business, because he became an admiral, So we had several captains over the course of the time I was on the ship. So that's my life on the U.S.S. Indiana. But we got back from Tokyo Bay, we got back to San Francisco, and here I am on a battleship, and guess what? I was USN. All the USNR guys were getting discharged. They put me on, would you believe, a seagoing tug, the U.S.S. Preserver, and I went right back to Pearl Harbor. And that was an experience, believe me, from a battleship to a seagoing tug. Oh yeah, that was good. In fact, the Preserver she evidently came to the East Coast, and she was the ship that brought the Bathyscaphe out to off Cape Cod, Mass. When the Thresher sank. They sent that little Bathyscaphe down to hunt for her. It was that ship that I was on, that tugboat. So.
Small world.
Yeah, small world.
Tell me about you. You ever get to, set foot anywhere outside of Pearl Harbor in the Pacific coast, or when you went to the Pacific, it was mainly wherever you got off the ship, it was Pearl Harbor?
Oh yeah. We used to get liberty in Noumea, New Caledonia, but there wasn't many places that we pulled in at anchor. They would had a large or had places for us to go to liberty, because they're trying to get the islands back, and of course when we get back to Pearl Harbor, we get lots of liberty.
Now you had Marines on the ship with you?
Oh yes, there was a Marine detachment, because we had Admiral Shafroth was on our ship for one tour.
You had an admiral on the ship?
They had admiral's quarters on all the battleships, yeah. And we had Admiral Shafroth on our tour, one tour we had. He was I know you're recording it, but he was probably about, I'd say 5'6" or something like that. He was a big roly-poly guy. When he had inspection, we had to stand, wide apart instead of regular space. He'd go down through these shows. And when we were in port, we always had inspections every Saturday morning. And one day at inspection, the skipper stopped in front of me and he looked me up and down, then he looked me in the face and said, "Do you shave yet, son?" "No, sir." "About time you started," he said. So you knew by the next Saturday morning inspection I had to shave. I never got that one either. Because as I said, I was a towhead. Light blonde hair, and so what little whiskers I had didn't show, didn't show like guys with dark beards, But I learned to shave then.
I imagine you would after that.
Pardon?
I said, imagine you would after that.
Oh yeah, well you had to. Yeah.
Were there any other times on shore leave stood out to you?
Any what?
Any other Liberty times on off the ship stood out?
Well, of course we spent that one winter. We were in Bremerton, Washington, and I had an aunt that lived up in Calgary, Canada, and of course Washington very rarely got snow. It rained most all along the Washington coast. Well, I got to leave, and because I had an aunt up in Calgary, Canada, and I took a bus from Seattle up through the Snoqualmie Pass, and believe you me, we got up into the pass and there was 30 feet of snow. We got up into Calgary all right. And I remember, because we're in the Pacific, my mother's sister, my aunt Albin, said, "You have long johns, son?" I said, "Long johns? We're in the Pacific. We know where long johns in the Pacific." She gave me a pair of her uncle's long johns while I was up there visiting them. And had a good visit that time, because it was something else. Yeah.
What about tell me, you said your best friend was
Joe Roberts.
Joe Roberts, and you stick with him when you went off the ship, or?
Oh yes, he lived in Haverhill, Mass, and I lived in I started out in Easton, Sharon rather, and when I got married I moved to Easton, the next town over. I knew my wife's brothers because they were living with their uncle on the farm in Easton, and we used to walk over through the woods from Sharon to Easton and help them pick the tomatoes and cucumbers and stuff, And I met her out in the tomato field one day. "Get out of here, we're talking man talk." So I asked Tommy, "Where does Gussie live?" "When we go out tonight, I'll show you," he said. "But if anything happens," he says, "you can't blame me." Well, I married her, so I couldn't blame Tommy. I had 56 years with her. And we used to, after we were married, we used to go up to Haverhill to Joe's a lot of times, the weekends and stuff. And we kept in contact over the years. Because it was only an hour and a half up there or something. So Joe had 9 kids. I had 2. Well, I said it, but we actually adopted a girl. We got her 10 days old right out of the hospital. So I have 2 daughters left. His brother-in-law, my son, died at 58. He was 4 years in the Navy and 18 years in the Coast Guard. So
did it really change? How did being in the Navy change your just perspective, and how you act? How did it have an effect on you as a man?
On me?
Yes.
Well, I was only 19 when I went in, so I was 25 when I come out. What am I going to do? I don't know how it would change my perspective, because I knew I had to get a job, and I sold stuff. I sold full of brush. I worked in a window and door company, and then my son was born, and he was preemie, he was only 4'10", and they wouldn't let us take him home till he was 5 pounds. Every day I'd come home from work. Well, I had in the meantime, he was on special formula, and I got laid off at the window and door place, and I said to Gussie, I said, I got to get a job where we have an income. We have special formula here. I got to make sure. So I went to H.B. Hood in Boston, Mass, the headquarters. I went over to the little plant that was in Norwood, Mass, and talked to them about a job, and they sent me into Charlestown, the main plant, did my physical right after Memorial Day, and I passed it, so I went to work for H.B. Hood. I retired from them. And
just going back to just finishing up talking about the Indiana. What was the time you spotted the kamikaze? Were you the first one to see him? Tell me about.
Well, no, because they had to come through the whole fleet, you know, and a lot of them got through, even through.
Thank you. Everything's fine. Yeah. But tell me what you thought when you first saw them. When you first saw them, did you know right away, or were you scared?
Oh, we knew what it was. So we were. Oh yeah, because all the ships were shooting at all. The only planes that were in the air at that time was the Japanese kamikaze coming at us. Because our planes were off the carriers out, trying to shoot them down before they got to us. Mm-hmm. But they got through. That was an experience seeing them come, believe me.
You said that one got close enough to the point where it actually splashed the water from it, splashed the ship.
Oh yeah, when he hit the water, because he's coming at us like this, and the water when he hit splashed up on the ship. What
was the feeling of before and after?
Well, we ducked down in the gun tub,
mm-hmm.
and when he hit the water, we ducked down in the gun tub, and in case we didn't know that he was going to land in the water. We thought he was going to hit us, but he didn't. That was. And when then you learn then that we had good gunners on our ships. So.
When the flights were coming in and out, were you told when patrols were coming back from the aircraft carriers to make sure you didn't hit any friendlies, or did you just when the planes were coming back to the carriers that were the U.S.
Yeah.
Were you told to so you would know to look for them?
I suppose that I don't know.
It's pretty much all the time looking up.
Yeah. Well, but actual battles with the Japanese fleets, we never really were in any after the Battle of the Philippine Sea, and we never were in really any big battles because there wasn't many of them left to fight. And Tokyo Rose was the one that was this sore thumb on us. At night, when we weren't in actual battle zones, they used to pipe her program from Japan. She had a radio program. She had us all sunk. My sister sent me a little clipping out of the Sharon Advocate, little newspaper in my hometown. It said John Wright, a member of the crew of the U.S.S. Indiana, went down with the sinking of the ship. Well, who did it? Tokyo Rose announced it, and of course it got back to the States, And
that was the Japanese propaganda?
From Japan. She was an American citizen. She left California, went to Japan, and she did, what do you call it? Well, anyway, I forget how to say it.
News or propaganda?
Yeah, propaganda.
For Japan.
It was a propaganda show, is what it was.
For Japan,
and they used to pipe it over at night to us over the PA system on the ship.
What'd you think about that when they told you?
Well, we were all naturally all up in arms over it. What could we do? But they did get her after the end of the war. They brought her back to the States. She was tried and executed.
Sit there and talk about whole ships going down.
Yeah. My sister, I still have that little clipping my sister sent me. And so, yeah. And any of this task forces that I was in, we never lost any ships. But Tokyo Rose had us all sunk. Yeah. Well, we have 13 battle stars. I got several medals here, and I got a medal.
Talk about some of them up.
Liberation of Taiwan and Saipan. And we got some medals for the liberation of the Philippine Islands, because we sent to the embassy in Washington, D.C., and they sent us the medals because we found out that we were entitled to them. So.
You wanna hold that up and talk to them? Tell me about the medals themselves. Point to them for me.
Yes, go ahead.
You've
got Taiwan too, that round in there. Oh, with me.
Mm-hmm. So what do you? I'll hold on to it, but just tell me. Just go down the line. And tell
well,
me
I can't. This is hard for me to remember, but this is the Asiatic Pacific, and this is also, I think, part out there. This is the, I suppose the. I don't really remember them, but this is our ruptured duck when we get discharged that we got, and I forget what these are. They're in. I can't really remember exactly what they are. And this one here, this is the big one we got from the liberation of Saipantinian.
Liberation of
Saipantinian Islands.
That's special something right there.
Yeah, they are special.
And this one says the ancient and honorable order of the Shellbacks.
Oh yes, that's what it was. In November of '42, when we left Panama, we went over the international date line, and any ship that goes over the international date line, they have a initiation. And anybody that hadn't gone over the equator before is initiated into Davy Jones' locker, really, and everybody gets initiated. Then you're a polywog up until then, and then you become a shellback. So, oh, in case you're asking about this on my cap, plank owner, that's because I commissioned the Indiana. Anybody that commissions a ship, it becomes a plank owner. You can get a piece of the plank. And I have a piece of the plank of the Indiana. I went to a trophy guy and had him print me out a little, it's a 4-inch, it's about that thick. And we got a 4-inch block. And I had him put on the front of it a plate with the U.S.S. Indiana. On the top, I had him list all our 13 battles. Then I have a little pewter of the lone sailor with his sea bag. And I put that on the back of the plate too. So I got that as one of my memoirs. So, but they sent when the Indiana was scrapped, they sent a bunch of people from the state of Indiana out to Bremerton, Washington, to the mothball fleet, and where she was at. And they took the plank up, and that's how we got a piece of the plank. We just last weekend had our 40th reunion, ship's reunion, down in Massachusetts on the U.S.S. Massachusetts, which is a sister of the Indiana. So.
Have any good stories that you swapped then last weekend?
What's
Have any good stories you talked about last weekend or heard from somebody else?
Well, we had a couple of tours of the Newport Navy base where I trained in 1942. And those buildings that we trained in are all long gone. But we had our memorial service at the Navy Chapel down there. And then we went out. It was quite cold and windy last Sunday, so then we walked out onto a bridge that's closed off, and we, tossed our flowers in. Yeah. I get emotional.
It's all right, sir.
Every time I think of things like that.
It's all right, sir.
Yeah. Because I think about all the guys, that lost their lives. Not only the Navy, Army, Marines. I mean, it was an awful thing. So many guys, hundreds of thousands of guys lost their lives. For what? You wonder. We lost our youth fighting for the country. And the way some of these people act today, I'd like to shoot it myself. So,
I can't tell you how much.
no, every time I hit taps, I fill up. I can't help it. So, in fact, the chaplain came over. We were on the bridge for the end of the service, throwing the flowers over, and he saw me, and my daughter come up. She wrote him. He said, "Well, you guys did a great job," you know. But I always get filled up when I hit taps and you know, see things like that. I rarely ever watch when they have on the TV battle shows that supposedly be depicting the battles. I can't watch them. I get too filled up. So I suppose a lot of guys you think would get over it, but I never did. Because I always think of those guys. And you know, I think we lost 4 men the time when the Washington rammed us on the ship. Because you think of those things. You just can't help it. So I'm sorry.
No, that's quite all right. I just want to say I apologize on behalf of anybody that may be not acting right that you may have seen, but I can tell you how much I and everyone here at Clemson University appreciates your service and appreciates the men and women that didn't get to come home from any of their tours.
Thank you. I hope I did good. I don't know. I know it's on. It's still recording, I think, but
no,
I hope I did all right.
You did a great job, sir. Is there anything particular you would like to say? I really appreciate what you said about the remembering the other men and women. Is there anything else you just that I guess over the years has really stuck with you, or that you just like to really communicate?
Well, I wish all the boys in the service today, and especially those guys over in Afghanistan, I wish that they were safe. Wouldn't have this what's going on. The Taliban, I can't understand why those other countries they don't try to wipe them out. Because I mean, look at Pakistan. They're harboring these guys. Why would they want to do a thing like that? And look at the guys in Afghanistan. Our boys are training them supposedly to take over and to protect their own country, and they're shooting our guys that are training them. You know, that's the most terrible thing in the world. I can't understand it. So, because I'm not the smartest, and I'm not a scholar or anything, but those little things like that, they just bother me.
Well, I'd say you're wiser than most, sir.
Pardon?
I'd say you're wiser than most.
So,
well, if there's no other stories you've come across or anything in particular, we really appreciate you coming out today.
well, thank you very much.
It was an honor to have you out here, and it was an honor recording.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Is that ended?
It is.